Yeah, there we go. Okay. Let me see if I can get my other sound thing set up. The cat is trying her best to cause me a problem tonight. Buds working. They were working earlier, now they're not working, of course, when I need them. That's how it always goes. There. Okay, come on, find them. There we go. Here we go. That's where I want the sound to go. Let me see if this is... Nope, don't hear it. Okay. Okay. Trying to get the sound going, get off my keyboard. Oh, got it muted, no wonder.
That election result from Donald Trump and his supporters.
There we go. Okay, let's back up just a hair. And get started. And let's go ahead and get this show started.
Sup?
Hello, everybody. This is the last part of the documentary, and I am going to try to finish this up on this one, and then I will try to do some other things. And we'll look for something else to do a live reaction to later if this goes well. If I can get my bottom scroller to go, we'll get started. Okay, let's go.
Counting continue while others call for counting to stop. Near Phoenix, dozens of Trump supporters gather outside the elections building, some trying to get inside.
Poll workers have to be escorted out by armed sheriff's deputies.
In Detroit, self-proclaimed election challengers tried to storm the room where votes are being counted. 50 protesters were arrested in New York after a peaceful rally turned violent.
Every vote has to count.
Donald Trump now sending in the lawyers.
The funny thing about what they were doing is in places where Trump was ahead, they said stop to count. When places where Trump was behind, they said keep counting. They were very inconsistent. I remember when that was all that chaos was going on.
To stop the count with an avalanche of cheating and rigging claims, suing in Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania.
Trump claimed there was cheating and rigging before the first vote was cast. I mean, almost 2 years before the next vote was cast. He's a sore loser. He just was going to put doubt on this whole thing from the beginning. I seem to have an echo. Let me see if I can fix that. But anyway, let's move on.
And now Nevada.
These mail ballots. They could be from Mars as far as we're concerned. Joe Biden could have voted 50 times.
This is fraud. This is absolute fraud. We've seen it in Philadelphia before. They're trying to make a mockery of the election of this country.
The only problem is you had absolutely no proof of any fraud. 60 court cases, you didn't bring any evidence whatsoever.
As Joe Biden edges ahead in the battle for the White House.
I'm not here to declare that we've won, but I am here to report when the count is finished, we believe we will be the winners.
A divided America with no leader decided.
2020 was already a year of drama, unexpected.
Yeah, this is let me see if I can do something with that echo. Let me see it. It's coming across. Trying to find. Okay, why is this sound coming over the? Oh, I know. Let me go to here. It's because it's over here. That should take care of it, I think. Well, we'll see. And here we go.
Did events and so much turmoil, so perhaps no surprise that the presidential election was not going to end in a simple, cut and dried way. On election night, it was too close to call, and that was partly because of what had happened with COVID, that there were a lot of people who voted remotely, they voted by mail, and so...
Which was their right to do. Let's see, I need to do something about my microphone. It is not picking up very good. But it's because it's going on software, not the hardware this time. Check my input thing here. Input, let me check my volumes here.
Let's try it again. Oh God, that sounds terrible. Let's see if that's what I play.
A number of votes were counted on the night.
Completely looking the wrong place. Let me just turn this thing off. Okay, that's fine.
There we go. what's going on with this volume. It is... Sound is always such a pain in the butt. Okay, let's try it again.
Versus the number of votes that still had to be counted.
Why is that going to there? Let me see. Okay, the sound's coming over good on your side. On my side, it sounds terrible. Okay, I guess that'll work. I don't know if you can hear me, though. Okay, let's see what it does.
Things weren't necessarily clear. Not all the states were counted. Some of the counting kept changing. So on election night, it was still up in the air as to what was happening. The count's still underway, but what immediately happened was Donald Trump calling foul, saying that this was some kind of corrupt thing, that votes were being hidden, that the count was being changed, and it was language that his supporters soon picked up. And so over the coming days, suddenly there were lawsuits across the country challenging the vote. There were allegations that ballots were being dumped in rubbish bins and corruption among election officials. And his supporters picked that up, and so they were protesting. Stop the steal was their slogan, for fear that Donald Trump was about to lose. Election officials were flabbergasted by this. I mean, they'd been working for years, as they always do, to prepare for this election, to prepare for this key ideal, this key part of the United States, this democratic choice. And now the very process was being thrown into chaos by the protesters, by the lawsuits from Trump and his supporters. And so it took several days because the count was slowed down by the ballots that had been mailed in because of COVID. And so it was 4 days before finally the last state, Pennsylvania.
Hey, Steve, can you get out of the way? Can you get this back? She's causing me some problems. Okay, fixing. Okay. Let's switch and put the glasses to now. My goodness. Come on. Okay, she finally went. Blocking me here. What in the world is going on with that? Stupid voice models interfering with everything. Hello. Of course, it missed everything. I need to take a minute to fix this thing. Let's try here. Let's see if that's any better. Okay, how's that? Okay, let's try this one.
Hello? It's picking up sound. I'm not even making any sound. Okay. Hello? This microphone's not that good. Let's try this. Okay, let's see if that worked. Hello? Well, it seems to be working. We'll try it. It's not as high, but okay. I'm further away from it because it's the dash cam, it's the webcam microphone, but let's see if that goes.
Was called for Joe Biden. That meant Donald Trump couldn't win. Joe Biden had it. And the effect, I remember that morning in Philadelphia, was instant. That morning the news came out, the count had been declared for the state. The downtown of Philadelphia was filled with people celebrating. San Francisco, Washington, D.C., cities across the country, there was massive turnouts of people relieved, I think, that there was finally an election result, and for them, relieved that that result was Joe Biden had been elected. But as we now know, it was just the start of a fight against that election result from Donald Trump and his supporters.
Yeah, Trump tried to cheat. He tried to steal it. And hopefully this will go over better with the sound. Biden's big win, and he did win.
From now on, carry a self-defense stick with you wherever you go. This specially designed retractable and deformed metal.
After 4 years and 4 days of waiting,
We won! You know what? Goodness won!
this is the result tens of millions of Americans were counting on. The Capitol dancing to a Democrat president.
Today! Oh my God! Seriously! Oh, thank you!
His supporters excited Donald Trump's first and only term is now ending. That same euphoria repeated in cities across the US. Democrats looking forward to what's coming.
We believed in our hearts that Biden was best for the United States.
In Chicago and in front of his hotel, they cheered. In the city where Trump made his name, they sang.
Oh, I forgot about that. Nah, 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 nah. If only he'd actually left.
And in the state that delivered for his opponent, pedestrians party. A blue celebration every time the light changed from red.
The news spread like wildfire throughout Philadelphia. Within minutes of Joe Biden being declared the winner, people flocked here to the City Hall, taking to the streets, taking over the streets to celebrate.
Everybody started coming out of their buildings, out of their apartments, cheering, yelling, honking. It was amazing.
Awesome! I feel like a huge weight has been lifted off our shoulders.
And I'm already hopeful in 2024 that Kamala Harris is the next president.
Pennsylvania tipped the Electoral College scales in Joe Biden.
Well, she got her wish. That Kamala Harris was going to run again, run 2024.
Biden's favour. But among the celebrations, Trump supporters. This lone man confronted in the crowd. Those penned in were taunted. Protected by police.
Supreme Court! Supreme Court! Supreme Court!
And refusing to back down.
What's your feeling at the moment?
I feel great. The other side, they actually believe that a news agency can tell them who the president is.
And then they start dumping these fake ballots in there. They're going to find them all out.
Been 4 years. Didn't find any so far.
In Michigan, some simply wouldn't accept the result. In several other cities, albeit in smaller numbers, so-called Stop the Steal rallies took place.
You committed voter fraud! Cheaters!
And it's fully proof that the press is manipulating and propagandizing this whole election.
But the night belonged to Team Biden.
I wonder if that lady's still alive.
Hoping for the next 4 years at least,
Go Biden! Go Biden!
America will march to a different beat.
Is that Elmo? Well, there's Mickey.
A president-elect inheriting a pandemic.
I will spare no effort to turn this pandemic around once we're sworn in on January 20th.
On the day America cracked 10 million cases of coronavirus, Joe Biden laid out a plan to steer the country through, hammering home the...
They tend to forget he walked into a complete and utter mess. Trump didn't know what he was doing. He totally screwed everything up. And he left a complete dumpster fire of a country for Biden to step in and try to fix. Had to almost literally build it up from scratch.
Most basic measures.
As we work toward a safe and effective vaccine, we know the single most effective thing we can do to stop the spread of COVID is wear a mask.
And naming.
And yeah, masks did slow it down. Didn't stop it, but it did slow it down. And you don't wear a mask to protect yourself. You wear it to protect the person in the room with you. Because with COVID, you didn't know whether you were actually infected or not in some cases. Or actually most cases. That's how it got around so much.
His task force.
This group will advise on detailed plans built on a bedrock of science.
The Trump administration with its own meeting and its own task force. Vice President Mike Pence heaping praise on his boss for a vaccine breakthrough, despite Pfizer receiving no federal funds for the development or research. From the White House, the president questioned the timing of its release.
So, okay, Pfizer said they got no money from anything from the government, so Operation Warp Speed had absolutely nothing to do with it. Well, how about that? Go figure. Trump lied.
The FDA and the Democrats didn't want to have me get a vaccine win prior to the election, so instead it came out 5 days later, he wrote. Going on a purge today, sacking his defense chief on Twitter. again railing against the election result. Nevada is turning out to be a cesspool of fake votes, he wrote.
We want to protect the franchise of the American people. We want an honest, accurate, lawful count. We want maximum sunlight. We want maximum transparency.
The White House spokesperson muted minutes in by the president's panel of choice.
Well, I just think we have to be very clear. She's charging the other side is welcoming fraud and welcoming illegal voting. Unless she has more details to back that up, I can't in good countenance continue showing you this.
Publicly, he's challenging.
Yeah, Fox News lost, what was it, $700 billion, almost $800 billion, not billion, but $1 million from those lies, and they got called out for it really bad. Didn't go over well for them in the long run. That's why Tucker Carlson got his ass fired.
The result, but privately it's reported Donald Trump's telling aides he's already looking forward to a potential run in 2024. Presidents can only serve 2 terms, but they don't need to be concurrent. Still, the president's pushing ahead with litigation.
And President Trump is 100% within his rights to look into allegations of irregularities and weigh his legal options.
The Attorney General late tonight authorising federal prosecutors to investigate.
So now the courts threw it all out because there was no evidence. They come in there and said, hey, we think they cheated. You got any evidence of it? No, but we think they did. Well, that's not how that works. That's not how that works in court. You have to have evidence. If you don't have evidence, well, then you're out of luck.
Clear and apparently credible allegations of irregularities.
This election is over. It's time to put aside the partisanship and the rhetoric that designed to demonize one another.
Yep. Trump's big loss. And he lost a lot, like 60 times. And then he lost the, I think, Georgia election like 3 times in a row. Because he kept getting the recounts over and over again, and he kept losing on every one of them.
The longest stretch of the Trump presidency without an appearance on camera. It ended with this update on a COVID vaccine.
The vaccine will be distributed to frontline workers, the elderly, and high-risk Americans immediately.
And the general population, he says, by next April. This as the US suffered a record 170,000 new COVID cases on Friday.
Whatever happens in the future, who knows which administration it will be. I guess time will tell, but I can tell you this administration will not go to a lockdown.
That, the first public glimpse of doubt from Donald Trump over the outcome of last week's election.
It seems like he's finally beginning to move through the stages of grief. He got stuck in denial.
CNN projects that for the first time since Bill Clinton in 1992, the state of Georgia is blue.
TV networks have called the final 3 undecided states North Carolina for Donald Trump.
It's shameful that he's still in denial. The numbers couldn't be any clearer.
But Democrat Joe Biden wins Arizona and Georgia, pulling him well above the needed 270 electoral college votes. The result, a perfect reversal of the 2016 win Donald Trump called
an electoral college landslide. Had a tremendous landslide.
It's really a landslide.
We had a landslide.
President Trump is now looking to protesters to press his claim the election was rigged. He tweeted today he might even join one protest here tomorrow.
With hindsight, election night 2020 looks like a really pivotal night for Donald Trump. He was in the White House. He had a number of aides and advisors around him and watching, obviously, the election results come in. There was a fair deal of confidence in the Trump camp, it seems, on that night in November that they could win, and they felt, in fact, they likely would. And that was the way the early vote count felt for those who were watching the US election results in the early hours. Trump did pretty well early. There was a defining time, though, about 11:15 Eastern US time in the evening. Fox News, which had, of course, long backed Donald Trump, was his TV network of preference. Fox News called Arizona for Joe Biden. It tells you all you need to know about the Trump administration and the man himself, that they saw that as a treacherous act from Fox. What on earth were they doing, giving one of the swing states to Joe Biden at a critical stage on the vote count on the evening of the election? You'd think as a journalist we'd just see it as a natural matter of statistics and those clued into elections deciding when a state ought to be called. No, this was a matter of treachery. He called an extraordinary 2:20 a.m. press conference. I mean, what Western leader on an election night waits till 2:20 a.m. To call a press conference to discuss the results? But Donald Trump threw that convention out and did exactly that. Not only did he call it at that time, of course, he defied the election results. He said it had been rigged, that it had been stolen from them. He set in course a pattern that he's now never backed off. And looking at that night, it appears that his advisor, former Mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, who was at the White House that night, was particularly influential in telling Donald Trump that it appeared that the election had been rigged, that there were suspicious votes had been cast, that he really did need to push this line. Others of his advisors were counselling him not to. They were saying, don't go there, we shouldn't go there. But once the leader did in that press conference, he essentially locked in a course on the 2020 election that he's stuck to until today that defies so much evidence to the contrary. Washington on edge. Trump's supporters and opponents clash near police barriers around the White House as the president heads to play golf. Earlier, he'd appeared to finally accept Democrat Joe Biden's victory 8 days ago. He won because the election was rigged. No vote watchers or observers allowed.
Is the president right now in this tweet conceding this election?
No, far from it. What he's saying is more, I guess you'd call it sarcastic.
Sure enough, a clarifying tweet. Joe Biden only won in the eyes of the fake news media. I concede nothing.
When your time is up, then it is your job to put the country first and think beyond your own ego.
And this Republican agreed.
That is something Donald Trump would never do, is put the country before his own ego. He will never do that. He's not going to do that. Ever.
Donald Trump's old national security advisor has slammed party colleagues who've backed the president's effort to overturn the vote.
But he won't leave graciously, and he'll do a lot of damage in the meantime.
Prompting this. John Bolton was one of the dumbest people in government, a real dope.
The White House transition remains stalled as the country's third wave of coronavirus roars to record levels. And yet the most prominent virus advisor here says President Trump has not been involved.
The last time the president was physically at a task force meeting was several months ago.
Joe Biden appeared at church today. The president-elect's inauguration is still 9.5 weeks away. Donald Trump's final G20 meeting. So what's on the
Well, Biden actually goes to church. I know that's a shock to Republicans, but yeah, he actually goes to church.
President's mind. 13 minutes into the World Leaders Summit, his 89 million Twitter followers find out. Massive and unprecedented fraud. Still trying to turn the election he lost almost 3 weeks ago. President Trump headed for golf, skipping a leader.
Yeah, he didn't even pay attention. He's in with world leaders, and he's still whining and bitching about losing the election. Get over it, dude. You lost.
His meeting on the pandemic as it ravages his country.
This is faster.
Yeah.
It's broader.
He still wasn't dealing with it because he's too busy worrying about he's going to get in legal trouble.
And what worries me, it could be longer. And I think it's on all of us right now to make sure that it's not longer.
Americans join giant traffic queues for COVID tests, with the daily number of new cases poised to break through 200,000. The national death toll now above 255,000.
Apparently I got the Rona.
The president's eldest son speaking from isolation about his diagnosis.
I may have a couple days of solo time, and there's only so many guns I can clean before that gets bored, so...
In the week ahead, America's Thanksgiving.
What a jackass that man is.
Holiday. Authorities fear millions will press on with the typical travel and big family events. If they do, COVID cases are all but certain to surge higher still.
Nothing's stopping me. Nothing. I am nervous, but I want to be with my babies.
I feel safe to fly. I think we should all fly for Thanksgiving.
The Trumps counting down to a not-so-festive farewell. The president out of sight but giving the green light for a transition to a Biden administration. His formal approval in a tweet, but no concession. Our case strongly continues. We will keep up the good fight and I believe we will prevail. Nevertheless, in the best interest of our country, I am
Time to say goodbye. Na 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 na. Na 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 na.
recommending that Emily and her team do what needs to be done with regard to initial protocols and have told my team to do the same. Emily Murphy, who holds the transition funds, now releasing them, as the Biden camp plans to, quote, gain a complete understanding of the Trump administration's efforts to hollow.
Yeah, they held up the funds to make things more difficult for Biden on his way out in. I mean, honestly, the man didn't give a crap about this country. Trump just does not care. He tried to sabotage everything before he left.
Out government agencies. Joe Biden. The incoming commander-in-chief already down to business with the nation's mayors.
Thank you all again.
Earlier announcing key cabinet picks, among them former Secretary of State John Kerry, returning to the world stage as a presidential envoy on climate, and the first woman picked to lead the nation's intelligence agencies and treasury.
So do you expect Republicans to put up any significant roadblocks to your nominations?
Are you kidding me?
Why do you go with national security first?
Because it's national security.
As yet another crucial state, Michigan, certified his win. Trump's embattled legal team calls it simply a procedural step, vowing to continue fighting what they call election fraud. Some of these lawyers are now turning on each other, and today, conservative media turned on them.
You announce, man.
Yeah, they absolutely just ripped each other apart. I thought he was dead by then. When did he die?
Massive bombshells. Then you better have some bombshells.
I will introduce to you now, Mr. President. You are connected.
A bitter fight, baseless claims.
This election was lost by the Democrats. They cheated.
Donald Trump phoning into an event with Pennsylvania Republicans.
No, they didn't cheat. You just lost. I mean, the man, he just a crybaby. Like, oh my God, he's such a crybaby. Really is.
To challenge Joe Biden's victory.
We have to turn the election over because there's no doubt we have all the evidence, we have all the affidavits, we have everything.
Fraud claims thrown out by judges. Still, the post-election spectacle rolls on. Spearheaded by...
The problem is, they had no evidence. Every judge they took it in front of threw it out. Even the ones Trump appointed. So, yeah, that didn't work at all.
The former New York mayor.
I know crooks really well. You give them an inch and they take a mile.
Yeah, he knows crooks really well. He is one. That's how he knows them so well. And he lost everything by backing this. He literally lost everything he owns. He is a homeless person right now, technically. I mean, was it worth it, Rudy? Was it worth it to lose everything? Absolutely everything you own? I hope so, because You ruined your reputation, you ruined your legacy, and you lost every little piece of property you've ever accumulated over the last few years. So, yeah, I hope it was worth it.
And you give them a mile and they take your whole country.
Today, one crook granted clemency, the president pardoning his first national security advisor, Michael Flynn, who pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI.
Now, that man is a traitor, and Trump pardoned him because, well, he was his kind of traitor that would betray the country for Trump. So he betrayed us all. He should be in jail.
Congratulations to General Flynn and his wonderful family, the president wrote. I know you will now have a truly fantastic Thanksgiving. Heading into the American holiday, the president-elect with a national address on a national crisis.
We need to remember, we're at war with a virus, not with one another.
As he looks to mend wounds at home and bolster relationships with key allies, Joe Biden will also have to navigate one of the most complicated relationships of all, China. President Xi Jinping becoming one of the last world leaders to congratulate him overnight. Releasing a statement saying he hopes the two nations will uphold the spirit of non-conflict, non-confrontation, mutual respect and win-win cooperation. A fractious relationship at an all-time low. Its future still uncertain in Joe Biden's America.
This may be the most important speech I've ever made.
A presidential transition unlike anything America's ever seen.
I went from leading by a lot to losing by a little. They said you could sign your name as Santa Claus and it would be accepted. This is normal? Normal? Look, even here, normal?
None of what he's showing there, none of what he says is true. It's just stuff people said online, and he thinks if some idiot says it online in a tweet or whatever, a comment, he thinks it's evidence of something. No, there's no evidence. This isn't evidence. You have to have actual evidence, and he didn't have any.
And then boom.
49 days before he's due to leave the White House, Donald Trump spent 46 minutes on Facebook raging about a rigged election.
It is statistically impossible that the person, me, that led the charge, lost.
Repeating claims of voter fraud debunked yesterday by his own Attorney General. A White House address adding weight to reports Trump's considering a preemptive pardon for himself, 3 of his children and his lawyer.
Now I hear that these same people that failed to get me in Washington have sent every piece of information to New York so that they can try to get me there.
Unwilling to accept the result of this election and eyeing off the next, Donald Trump will be back in campaign mode this weekend, holding a so-called victory rally in Georgia. President-elect Joe Biden has largely ignored Trump's claims, focused instead on a health crisis he's about to inherit.
We're likely to lose another 250,000 people dead between now and January. You hear me? Because people aren't paying attention.
There's no doubt that COVID completely derailed re-election for him. The election was so close, it's very possible without COVID he would have won. And we've often said, what if it was a year earlier or a year later? And I guess he's a politician, he always had his eyes on the prize. But there were those moments where people were dying and they just didn't care anymore about November. There were times people were saying, is there even going to be an election?
I have really good news. Today, our nation has achieved a medical miracle.
The late-night approval America's been praying for.
I am thrilled to report that the FDA has authorized the Pfizer vaccine.
Operation Warp Speed now in top gear, 100 million doses shipping out.
The first vaccine will be administered in less than 24 hours and soon end the pandemic once and for all.
In a country setting a frightening new record every other day.
Probably for the next 60 to 90 days, we're going to have more deaths per day than we had at 9/11 or we had at Pearl Harbor.
An impatient president had accused the drug regulator of being old, slow and playing games. Coupled with stunning reports, the White House Chief of Staff told FDA Chief Dr. Hahn to authorize the vaccine tonight or resign. Hahn labelled that an untrue representation of the phone call.
We have given Pfizer and other companies a great deal of money, hoping this would be the outcome.
But on the
pretty sure Pfizer said they didn't get any money. But then again, I'd have to go back and look. Wouldn't be like a pharmacy company to lie now, would they? Yeah, they probably lied.
Same day, another hope dashed.
Breaking news right now out of the U.S. Supreme Court.
President Trump's latest legal bid to prove he won the election thrown out. This was a long-shot lawsuit by the state of Texas, backed by Donald Trump and more than 100 House Republicans. But their bid to overturn the election results in 4 key battleground states was rejected by all 9 justices in a one-page ruling. For the first time, even referencing a future under Joe Biden.
I think that was a sort of couched in terms of, if in fact, but I don't think he was conceding anything in particular. He's still litigating.
Presidential pledges.
Fraught from the start, the changeover between the current president's team and incoming team is growing tetchier.
We encountered obstruction,
including, Joe Biden says, from defence leaders on critical national security matters.
It's nothing short, in my view, of irresponsibility.
After talks with security advisors, the president-elect had a message for allies, likely to be noted in Canberra.
As we restore principles of American leadership on the global stage.
A pledge to repair alliances damaged through the Trump years, then joining those allies in standing up to China.
To hold China's government accountable for its trade abuses, technology, human rights, and other fronts.
As well, he accuses the Trump administration of inflicting enormous damage on US security agencies, of hollowing them out. No response from the president. He remains in Florida, tweeting his claim November's presidential election must be overturned. Not according to his favourite newspaper.
A very fine newspaper, the New York Post.
Stop the insanity, demands the New York Post. You lost the election. The pro-Trump tabloid warns the president he risks finishing not as a revolutionary, but the anarchist holding the match. Others may yet applaud him, turning $600 pandemic relief payments into $2,000 cheques. The president having insisted on it, the more generous handouts for ordinary Americans are now before Congress. Campaigning again in Georgia, where he pulled off an unlikely victory 6 weeks ago.
We got a vote!
Incoming President Joe Biden now tries to wrestle control of the US Senate after Republican attempts to turn the state's result in.
Yeah, that is one thing Joe Biden wasn't able to deliver on. It would have been nice to get the $2,000 checks. Unfortunately, he couldn't get Congress to go along with it, which did hurt his reputation just a little bit. I wish he had gotten that through.
2 recounts.
Georgia certainly wasn't going to stand by and let Donald Trump or the state of Texas or anyone else come in here and toss out your votes.
This as several world leaders offered belated congratulations for the Biden election win, one of them Russia's Vladimir Putin. As well, top Republicans, influential Senate leader Mitch McConnell, largely silent since November's election, not anymore.
So today I want to congratulate President-elect Joe Biden.
We disagree on a lot of things. There's things we can work together on.
Losing his most...
I'm sorry, but Mitch McConnell is a loser. He bowed his head to Trump and groveled like a little snot.
Powerful ally in Congress, a setback to President Trump's claim fraud cost him last month's election. His reaction? He headed online and on the attack, claiming tremendous evidence pouring in on voter fraud.
The president is still involved in ongoing litigation.
And for both the current and new president, personal decisions to make on the COVID vaccine. If and when to get vaccinated.
The president currently at this moment has said he is absolutely open to taking the vaccine.
Dr. Fauci recommends I get the vaccine sooner than later.
The day everything changed.
Washington turns stormy as the Trump presidency nears an end.
Stop the steal! Stop the steal!
The president's supporters say this is their last stand.
Welcome to the revolution!
President Trump is pushing his vice president to ignite the revolution. He called Mike Pence to the White House after falsely claiming the vice president has the power to reject fraudulently chosen electors. Other Republicans in Congress say they will break with tradition tomorrow and vote against certifying Joe Biden's presidency.
On January 6th, I will object to the Electoral College vote.
Georgia's two pro-Trump Republican Senate candidates are among them.
Come on in.
They faced voters today in two Georgia elections.
The Democrats need to win both these seats to take control of the Senate. Right now, Raphael Warnock is leading by 35,000 votes.
I am going to the Senate to work for all of Georgia.
The Congress is widely expected to weather Donald Trump's attack and confirm his replacement. Many worry, though, he's opened a Pandora's box, and partisan fighting will be the new norm here whenever America changes presidents. Yet there's a certainty among these protesters Donald Trump was cheated in November. And if Congress does not save him tomorrow, they believe something else will give.
Trump needs to be the president. I truly believe that. Biden needs to go to prison.
There'll be a war in this country. It's that simple.
January 6th was already to be an important day in the process of electing Joe Biden as president. It was the day where Congress was to confirm his election. A lot of pressure had been put on in the days before by President Trump on his vice president, Mike Pence, who had to oversee that process in the Congress, hoping that Pence would accept the vote of these false electors that Trump supporters had set up, and therefore hand the presidency, hand a second term to Donald Trump. The public pressure grew, and part of putting that public pressure on Mike Pence was calling this enormous rally on the ellipse on the southern edge of the White House on January 6th before the official confirmation was to take place in Congress. And Donald Trump addressed that rally. I was there. It was a giant rally. They'd done a mammoth job. Trump supporters are bringing tens of thousands in to hear the president speak. And the president's words at that rally now echo in US history. You need to fight for your nation, he said, otherwise you won't have a nation to fight for. And he implored his supporters to go to the Capitol to put pressure on the members of Congress who were voting to confirm the next US president, and in particular, to put pressure on his Vice President Mike Pence that was overseeing that process in the Capitol. The rally beforehand was peaceful, was very colourful. People there generally seemed very calm, supportive of Trump, obviously, but pretty calm, and there wasn't outward signs of problems in the rally itself, until the group that decided to take up Trump's words and march on Congress got mobile and headed to Congress. And I remember following that group towards Congress, and one of them saying to me, this feels like the start of a civil war. And there was a real edginess, a nastiness, an aggression in that crowd. This was, if you like, that crowd of 30,000 had kind of self-selected to a group of core supporters who really meant to take up Trump's attack on the Capitol. They were pre-prepared for it. There were weapons for it. They were going hard. They were fired up by their hero to do it, regardless of what their hero thought he was motivating them to do. They were fired up to attack it. And as we know, that's exactly what they did. USA! 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 Chaos at the heart of America's democracy. Unleashed by the president, Donald Trump supporters smashed their way into the US Congress.
Funny that Republicans are okay with these guys. I mean, they were clearly breaking property and destroying things, and breaking into a building they weren't supposed to be in.
Furious over President Trump's November defeat, certain he was cheated and told they can...
By the way, anybody else notice the difference between the way these people were treated and the Black Lives Matter protesters were treated? If this had been Black Lives Matter protesters, they would have been shot and killed. They wouldn't have gotten anywhere near this. Let's be real, okay?
Reverse the result.
They work for us. They don't get to steal it from us. We respect the law. We were good people. The government...
This guy is a loser. They did not respect the law. They were not good people. And I think he's probably in jail.
Did this to us. We were normal, good, law-abiding citizens, and you guys did this to us.
No, you're not. You're a criminal. And you should be in jail where you belong.
We want our country back.
Hundreds overrun security. In the famous Rotunda, Capitol Police try to fight off any further incursions. And lawmakers grab gas masks, making a hasty retreat from the chamber.
We were just told that there has been tear gas in the rotunda, and we're being instructed to each of us get a gas mask.
America's leading politicians led into hiding and left to comfort one another, unsure what was happening.
Where are we going?
Yeah, and you had Marjorie Taylor Greene and Marjorie Taylor Greene was for sure tweeting out locations of Nancy Pelosi and other Congress people, trying to get them killed because she's a bitch.
Rayburn? On the ground.
Descending the stairs and away from any danger, those stuck inside watch on as officers use furniture to barricade the doors.
Everybody stay down! Get down!
Terrified and praying. And this is why, just a few metres away, they were witnessing a final stand, guns drawn, officers ready to fire, desperate to keep the angry mob behind those doors.
Why did they not fire? I'm sorry. They should have shot those people. They should have. I guess as a liberal, I'm supposed to be happy they didn't kill those people, but no. If this had been anybody else but right-wing crazed nuts, those cops would have shot them right in the face. Right through that door. Where the guy's doing a really bad Jack Nicholson impersonation.
Outside the chamber, a woman is shot.
Yeah, Ashley Babbitt, the woman Trump said did not die. She got shot in the throat trying to climb through that window that she broke out with a hammer.
A 14-year Air Force veteran, she would later die.
Yep, she died. And I hate that for her family, but she kind of asking for it. And honestly, I think they should have shot more of them. They really should have, because what they were doing was extremely dangerous, highly criminal. It's flat out treason. And why did the cops not shoot? They showed a lot more restraint than I would have. I would have probably shot them. Just saying. If it'd been me on the other side of that door with a gun and those maniacs were trying to bust in, yeah, I'd shot them. Shot as many of them as I could have. Until they started running away. And trust me, you shoot 2 or 3 of them, that's about all you'd have to shoot. The rest would turn and run.
All around, the stream of the aggrieved continued to flow into the building.
They did this because they felt there was no consequences to their actions. They didn't think there was going to be any consequences to their actions. 700 of them found out there were consequences to their actions. They're in jail where they belong, and hopefully they never get out. Well, actually, they got really short sentences. They didn't get that punished for what they did here, which is a shame.
as the mob mocked their traditions from the Speaker's chair and ransacked their offices.
Here you go, brother.
This, the nameplate of Trump enemy Nancy Pelosi.
I say, yeah, they need to bring him out and string him up.
Outside, tens of thousands weathered tear gas and applauded the invasion.
A die-hard American, I am tired of being a second-class citizen in my own country.
I just want to get your thoughts on what you think of that scene.
It was awesome. Stop the steal.
We want a 10-day audit of the entire election. Let's get it done. Then there will be peace. Then there will be civil unrest. But until then, it's treason.
They did audits. They did a bunch of audits. You lost all of them.
More than anything, this is a show of the police.
He even said this was treason. He knew what it was he was doing was wrong. He knew that it was treason.
Political force that Donald Trump can enact on those who defy him. The Republicans have decided to stick with convention and refuse to try and overturn November's vote.
Media became targets.
Yeah, they attacked everybody eventually because they're a bunch of unruly jackasses, more or less.
Earlier, the president lit the fuse.
We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved. So let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue.
There's a lot of tension right now. It could be a civil war breakout, for all I know.
There was already civil war among Republicans, many refusing to back their president.
If this election were overturned by mere allegations from the losing side, our democracy would enter a death spiral.
His presidential confirmation stalled. Joe Biden gave a presidential address.
I call on President Trump to go on national television now to fulfill his oath and defend the Constitution and demand an end to this siege.
Instead, he went on Twitter.
You have to go home now. We have to have peace.
Washington under curfew and Capitol Hill's security finally bolstered. Congress returned.
Let's get back to work.
This, the building 4 years ago, as it welcomed Donald Trump.
Basically, they accomplished absolutely nothing.
And this, today, 2 weeks before his presidency ends.
The final, terrible, indelible legacy of the 45th President of the United States. Undoubtedly our worst.
Locked in the White House, support vanishing.
America would be better off if the president would resign or be removed from office.
The president has become unmoored, not just from his duty, nor even his oath, but from reality itself.
The resignations roll in from Trump's former chief of staff, now special envoy.
I can't stay here. Not after yesterday. You can't look at that yesterday and think I want to be a part of that.
Then cabinet ministers, the education secretary and the transport secretary, who said...
By the way, Betsy DeVos was a piece of crap, and even she couldn't go along with this. And Mitch McConnell's wife is also a piece of crap, but even she couldn't go along with this.
The violence troubled me in a way that I simply cannot set aside. Blasted too by a once dear ally, former Attorney General Bill Barr, accusing Trump of betraying his office and his supporters. His nights here are numbered, his reputation now tarnished with blood and broken glass. Still, Donald Trump will leave Washington with a grip on the Republican Party base. Many of those who stormed the Capitol about to learn the price of their loyalty. Face after face, they're being identified, the FBI vowing to round up everyone. More than 50 have already been charged, one armed with a semi-automatic weapon and Molotov cocktails. The death toll now at 5. A Capitol policeman today succumbing to injuries from the clash.
Yeah, some of those people were held accountable, and they did have weapons. They were peaceful, unarmed. No, they weren't. They had weapons. They just weren't smart enough to know how to use them, apparently. Thank God.
The woman shot dead inside was Ashley Babbitt. She filmed herself on the way there.
And it was amazing to get to see the president talk. We are now walking down the inaugural path to the Capitol building. 3 million plus people.
Yeah, you were an idiot. And unfortunately, you paid a price for it.
God bless America, patriots.
But how they so easily invaded the American Capitol remains the stunning failure. Bursting past police barricades, they smashed into the building here, also swarming in from a second entrance. As the Vice President was evacuated from the Senate chamber, tear gas filled the famous rotunda.
Didn't it look like they kind of had some insider information to know how to get through that?
The mob waved Trump banners through the halls to the House chamber and that armed standoff. Shocking images seen by the world. Then there's videos like this, police letting some of the crowd in.
We failed. We did not secure the Capitol.
3 security leaders have been forced to resign, including the Capitol Police Chief. Less than a quarter of his staff were rostered on yesterday, despite all the warnings of trouble. And inside, no one knows yet if sensitive material was stolen.
It is mind-boggling that such an event could occur.
Back on Twitter,
Yeah, we never did find out what was on that laptop that woman stole from Nancy Pelosi. It could have had all kinds of stuff on it. She sold it. She should be in prison for treason. 20 years, I think it is. I mean, really.
President talking directly to his base.
And to all of my wonderful supporters, I know you are disappointed, but I also want you to know that our incredible journey is only just beginning.
He will talk about running in 2024, but he will not run because he will fear defeat.
13 days left in power, but it's Trump's influence that's likely to linger on.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
It was 3 hours and 7 minutes between when he finished his speech to the crowd at the Ellipse and he finally did speak publicly. That 3 hours and 7 minutes, we know he largely spent in a room off the edge of the White House watching live television, watching the violence unfold around the Capitol building. According to testimony, he was often rewinding his TV to watch in detail particular parts of the coverage. While this was going on, his aides, even his family, were trying to get word to him that he had to speak publicly. He had to calm down the crowd. Donald Jr. was, as we understand, texting Mark Meadows, his chief of staff, saying, "You've got to get the president to call this off. You've got to do this. This is destroying his legacy." That's a paraphrase of the texts that Donald Trump Jr. was sending to his dad's chief of staff. It took 3 hours and 7 minutes. And finally, Trump made a statement that essentially said, "Go home." Many saw it as merely mouth, but he did make the statement asking his supporters to go home. And part of the fury among congressmen and women was this sense that Donald Trump had actually sat in the White House and applauded as supporters tore through the US Capitol. Now, we don't know that he applauded, but that was certainly the sense, and he certainly took an awful lot of time to call off his supporters.
I would like to begin by addressing the heinous attack on the United States Capitol.
Condemned around the world for unleashing yesterday's chaos, the destruction, terror, 5 dead.
An unprecedented assault on our democracy.
Donald Trump now deplores
The violence, lawlessness, and mayhem
and the supporters who carried it out in his name.
have defiled the seat of American democracy.
Trump, unrecognizable from yesterday.
They're pathetic Republicans. We will never concede. It's a pure theft. Third world countries, their elections are more honest. The weak Republicans, and that's it. We're going to walk down and I'll be there with you.
Some want the president and key allies
Mark Meadows, an actual fighter.
prosecuted for incitement.
Let's have trial by combat. Inciting a mob to attack the Capitol.
Even fierce Trump allies are backing away.
His actions were the problem, not the solution.
A fellow Republican says Donald Trump's cabinet needs to dust off a rarely used amendment and dump him.
It's time to invoke the 25th Amendment and to end this nightmare.
Democrats say do it, or they'll move to end his presidency by impeaching him. Never mind, Donald Trump only has 13 days left in the job.
The president has committed an unspeakable assault on our nation and our people.
Also moving against the president, the social media companies he both hates and is heavily reliant on. Twitter banned him for 12 hours, Facebook and Instagram for a fortnight, and maybe indefinitely. And Donald Trump signalled he's dropping the campaign to stop Joe Biden becoming president.
A new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th.
Those who are working in this building are working to ensure an orderly transition of power.
Neither the president nor his spokesperson are taking questions.
Haley, where's the president?
No one wants to take responsibility for this. The stately offices of the Capitol building. Ransacked one day, left to the cleaners the next. This, the Speaker's office this morning, the chambers of Trump nemesis Nancy Pelosi, singled out by some in the attack.
Don't dare call them protesters. They were a riotous mob, insurrectionists, domestic terrorists.
The Capitol building hopelessly exposed, now fortified. Police there in force, the compound rapidly fenced, the city under a state of emergency until after Joe Biden is inaugurated, and the Trump years are over. Anger meets fear. Just released phone video of the chilling seconds where Trump supporters are about to storm
There's a gun! There's a gun! There's a gun!
the Speaker's lobby in Congress. Then the shot that kills 35-year-old Californian Ashley Babbitt, one of 5 to die in the midweek riot after...
Yeah, she died from that. She should have known better.
President Trump told tens of thousands to march on the Capitol building.
What this president has done is rip the Band-Aid all the way off to let the country know who he is.
Today, Congress lowered its flag for another of the 5, police officer Brian Sicknick. The repercussions are sweeping through the Trump White
That man died a hero.
House. Staff quitting, former staff distance themselves.
You would feel safer today if President Trump resigned and Vice President Mike Pence.
I believe he was he was the guy that got the pepper spray and had the reaction and died from it.
Pence took over.
I would.
Others worry Donald Trump is dangerous, like Twitter. Today, the social media giant slammed the door on the world's 6th most followed account, @RealDonaldTrump, permanently suspended. Why? The risk of further incitement of violence.
You don't have a First Amendment right to shout fire in a crowded theater. And that is essentially what the president has been doing.
The battery's gone from his online loud hailer. Donald Trump went on the president's official Twitter account. Twitter has joined the Democrats and radical left to silence me. Twitter then removed the tweets. The US president held back from using the US president's account.
I don't think it's over yet. It's never going to be over.
This Trump supporter insists the president's followers did not vandalize Congress, rather leftist extremists did it.
It's mind-boggling that you guys are actually putting a bunch of fake crap on TV.
The FBI says there was no leftist element. Its investigation leading to dozens of Trump supporters arrested, one of them Richard Barnett. the Arkansas man who grinned as he took over Nancy Pelosi's desk. The House Speaker and fierce Trump rival is now leading the push to impeach the president, remove him in his final 12 days. The resolution to do it could be introduced as soon as Monday. Here, in the very building his supporters attacked.
The president has disregarded his oath of office. What he did was wicked.
There is no way we're going to impeach the president. There's not the time to do it.
But Nancy Pelosi sounded the ultimate alarm after talks with America's highest-ranking military officer. An unstable president, she says, could initiate military hostilities or order a nuclear strike.
The only way we can hold him accountable and remove this dangerous man from office is to, in fact, impeach him.
In one of his last pre-blackout tweets, Donald Trump confirmed he will not attend Joe Biden's January 20th inauguration, the first departing president to skip his successor's start since 1869.
One of the few things he and I have ever agreed on. It's a good thing I'm not showing up.
Turning on America's men in blue, the mob that calls themselves patriots. Brandishing an American flag as a weapon to savagely beat a police officer, bludgeoned and left face down on the steps of the Capitol. The bloody clash at the entrance to Congress. The rioters' weapons of choice seen up close, baseball bats, bits of furniture, and even a door. Also outnumbered inside, this officer resorting to taunts, praised for using himself as
Those officers did the best they could in their circumstance. Trump abandoned them and left them out to dry.
live bait to lure the frenzied crowd away from the Senate chamber doors.
Check this out. We are inside her Nancy Pelosi's office.
But the mob did make it to the Speaker's office.
The evidence is now that it was a well-planned, organized group with leadership.
Nancy Pelosi revealing her staff were hiding.
This is really raw where I'm doing this because I'm doing it live and I'm trying to work with sound and other issues as I'm going, so please forgive the really bad quality, but I'm doing the best I can. Thanks.
In another room.
The staff went under the table, barricaded the door, turned out the lights, and were silent in the dark,
listening as the group pounded the door.
These mushrooms make you feel better. Like
there was a whole bunch of lunatics at the door trying to kill him. They were hiding.
While others, proud of having hijacked the building, attempted to call the president to gloat from inside the Capitol.
Let's call Trump, yes!
They trampled the very principles on which our country was founded.
Democrats now ready to...
Yes, they did. And a lot of them are being held accountable, and more of them need to be arrested. They need to get every stinking one of these people. They all need to be arrested, every one of them.
Trigger impeachment proceedings against Donald Trump for inciting the violence, as more Republicans call for his resignation.
It's the best path forward, the best way to get this person in the rearview mirror.
America is still picking up the pieces from Wednesday's siege and counting the cost of the violence.
Yep, there goes a hero to be laid to rest. And I don't think Donald Trump even acknowledged this man dying. As a matter of fact, he even recently said that nobody died. So he dishonored this man's memory who died a hero. He didn't even honor the woman who was one of his lunatic supporters. And I'm pretty sure her family, as I understand, are really pissed off about him about making that comment. I mean, he's a butthead all around.
Somber moment outside the Capitol where Officer Brian Sicknick worked and ultimately lost his life. A dedicated officer and Trump supporter, the White House flag now finally lowered to half-mast. His father's message that if any good comes out of my son's death, I just hope that it stops all the lunacy that's been going on in this country.
These people were being encouraged to do this. I think the fact that they did it might have shocked people, but the entire environment that surrounded it was not shocking at all. Again, absolutely terrifying scenes, but the basis of it was that undermining of democracy, that to lose and then to just say, no, I didn't lose. If a child behaved like that after a game, you would reprimand them. But this was the leader of the free world just denying the election result. It was incredibly damaging, and it's something that's continued to undermine democracy and politics in the United States. People I still speak to over there have said how damaging it is, because people just won't accept results that they don't like anymore. That's not how it works.
Okay, I think I've got the sound.
Donald Trump on the brink of an historic vote in Congress.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Set to make him the first ever US president impeached twice.
The impeachment is really a continuation of the greatest witch hunt in the history of politics.
This his first appearance since the speech
I'm gonna walk down and I'll be there with you.
that ignited the deadly Capitol Hill riot.
Yes, he was impeached twice. The only president to ever be impeached twice. And he deserved both of them. But the Republicans didn't have enough backbone to remove him from office and block him from ever holding office again. Now they're regretting that really bad.
What I said was totally appropriate.
In Texas to sign and talk up his border
No, it wasn't. It was treason.
wall, not a hint of regret or responsibility for the attack on Congress.
We believe in the rule of law, not in violence or rioting.
You believe in the rule of law. Since when? I think there's 34 felony convictions that you show that you do not believe in the rule of law at all.
And brushing off the amendment that might have been used to sack him.
The 25th Amendment is of zero risk to me, but will come back to haunt Joe Biden and the Biden administration. As the expression goes, be careful what you wish for.
His Vice President Mike Pence then ruled it out, saying, I will not play political games at a time so serious in the life of our nation. So impeachment moves ahead.
Donald Trump should not hold office 1 day longer.
At least 3 members of the president's own party now say they'll vote with the Democrats.
Free speech is under assault like never before.
And so once again, the White House is tonight heavily fortified ahead of Joe Biden's arrival here next week. The threat's not over here in the nation's capital. Police are bracing for more trouble. And today, the FBI had this warning to those who stormed the Capitol.
Agents from our local field offices will be knocking on your door. In 6 days, we have opened over 160 case files, and that's just the tip of the iceberg.
The Bureau says the day before the attack, it had intelligence a war was coming to the Capitol and warned police. Now warning of chilling new threats, private chat rooms and plans for future attacks. A historic chapter in Trump's turbulent legacy sealed. The first American president ever to be impeached twice, charged with inciting insurrection, 1 week after the bloody invasion of America's capital.
I want to be very clear. I unequivocally condemn the violence that we saw last week.
He watched from the White House before a 5-minute scripted plea from the Resolute desk.
No true supporter of mine could ever endorse political violence. No true supporter of mine could ever disrespect law enforcement or our great American flag. No true supporter of mine could ever threaten or harass their fellow Americans. If you do any of these things, you are not supporting our movement, you are attacking it, and you are attacking our country.
A dramatic shift.
Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore.
That came too late.
He must go. He is a clear and present danger to the nation that we all love.
Donald Trump is the most dangerous man to ever occupy the Oval Office.
Starting with impeaching the white supremacist in chief.
He must be prevented from ever attempting to seize power again.
On the House floor, impassioned debate, a vote at warp speed.
A vote to impeach would further divide this nation.
It's not just about impeachment anymore, it's about canceling, as I've said.
It's a very sad time in the history of our country. No one is celebrating.
Unlike round one, this wasn't on party lines. 10 Republicans broke ranks.
I am not choosing a side, I'm choosing truth. It's the only way to defeat fear.
I will vote yes on these articles of impeachment.
Donald Trump will now face a second trial by Senate with just 7 days left in office. He'll be gone before it begins.
Donald Trump owns one-half of all the presidential impeachments in history.
They are few. Andrew Johnson, 1868, impeached for sacking a cabinet minister without approval, acquitted by the Senate. 1973, Richard Nixon came close. Impeachment proceedings began over Watergate.
Well, people don't understand. Nixon didn't actually get impeached. He got out of there before they got him.
But went nowhere.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
He quit first, was pardoned later. Bill Clinton, 1998.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
The Lewinsky denial.
Except you did. We know you did. But they shouldn't have asked you about it in the first place. Honestly, you had a horrible lawyer, dude. When you sat down for that interview, the lawyer should have stopped you from even trying to answer that question under oath.
That had him charged with perjury and obstruction of justice. He was acquitted. 2019, Donald J. Trump, the first trial, abusing power and obstructing Congress, accused of pressuring Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden, acquitted easily. Now impeached again twice in 13 months, this time on shakier ground. The Republican Senate leader admitting he doesn't know which way he'll vote, as the nation visibly braces for round two. It's a scene you'd expect to see for a nation at war, a level of security likened to the days post 9/11. This time, though, it isn't a foreign threat. This is America turning on America.
Today I am calling on all Americans to overcome the passions of the moment and join together as one American people. We will get through this challenge, just like we always do.
You're the one that caused the problem in the first place.
Why do couples choose a Sleep Number Climate 360 smart bed?
Can it keep me warm when I'm cold?
Wait, no, I'm always...
Final days. Finally.
Washington on edge. The US Capitol complex thrown into lockdown.
Due to an external security threat.
Officials then realise the threat is in fact a small fire more than a kilometre away. Rehearsals resume for Thursday morning's unique, crowdless inauguration. The people replaced in Washington's Mall with a field of 200,000 state and national flags.
How's the speech training going? Have you finished your speech?
Officials concede the FBI is helping check all 25,000 personnel securing the change of presidents for fear some belong to right-wing extremist groups.
As we've seen, sometimes the enemies are a little closer to home.
The inside threat already made real with news one of those arrested in the Capitol Hill attack is from the same National Guard now securing the city. Also setting this inauguration apart, the current president has decided to skip it. He's the first to do that in more than 150 years. Donald Trump is widely expected to announce a raft of pardons tomorrow, then spend his final hours as president flying to Florida.
Always remember that violence is never the answer and will never be justified.
From the First Lady, a farewell message.
To all the people of this country, you will be in my heart forever.
As removal trucks arrived at the Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort.
It really was an administration that never quite organised a handover. For many weeks after the election, that was because the president didn't acknowledge he'd lost. He was planning on staying. He was organising to stay. So at least up until January 6th, there was no acknowledgement from Mr. Trump that he was actually going. We also know, though, that down to within a couple of days of leaving, there basically things remained very much in place in the White House. They hadn't been prepared for any changeover to a new administration to any degree. And it did really become a great scramble at the end to get out. This was This period would also become fascinating because, of course, so many government documents that were meant to be sent to the National Archives right at that time as the administration left turned up in boxes years later, scattered right through Mar-a-Lago, and are now at the centre, of course, of one of the court cases against Donald Trump, charged.
Yeah, there's the video footage of him stealing those documents. I mean, really. Yep, that's what we have. He stole them. He's a crook.
With his failure to give up government documents, some of them deeply secret and no doubt troubling to allies like Australia.
Amazing grace. As the sun set over a lonely Lincoln memorial, the president in waiting paused for just a minute longer. A somber ceremony, Joe Biden's first stop in Washington.
To heal, we must remember. It's hard sometimes to remember, but that's how we heal.
Mourning 400,000 American lives lost to the pandemic. As Donald Trump,
my fellow Americans,
delivered his parting words from the White House.
I took on the tough battles, the hardest fights, the most difficult choices, because that's what you elected me to do.
Spending his final hours as Commander-in-Chief, granting clemency to 143 people, a full pardon for former strategist Steve Bannon, charged with defrauding Trump supporters over border wall fundraising, and to rapper Lil Wayne on weapons charges, as the president prepares for a trial of his own. Accused of inciting the Capitol riot that's come to define his final...
He didn't give any of these people pardons. Not a single one of them got a pardon. They all thought they were going to. They didn't.
Days.
The crime in some cases was murder. Yeah. And this president is an accessory to that crime.
The mob was fed lies. They were provoked by the president.
The strongest rebuke yet from a once loyal ally.
Political violence is an attack on everything we cherish as Americans.
Advice for his successor.
The world respects us again. Please don't lose that respect.
Without mentioning Biden by name.
We extend our best wishes, and we also want them to have luck.
It was third time lucky for Joe Biden to win a presidential race. Today, he left Wilmington for Washington in tears.
Excuse the emotion, but when I die, Delaware will be written on my heart.
Soon to be sworn in as America's 46th Commander-in-Chief, a number not lost, standing at the base, named for his late son Beau, a war veteran who died of brain cancer at 46.
I only have one regret. He's not here, because we should be introducing him as president.
When he does take the oath of office, there'll be more troops than spectators to witness it. 12 of them now pulled from duty.
Just out of an abundance of caution, we want to make sure that that there's no issues.
In a matter of hours, the Trumps will have a bird's-eye view of this now militarized city, set to hold a farewell ceremony before heading down to Florida. Donald Trump...
Trump fled the scene of the crime where he stole all those documents. God knows who he sold them to or what he did with them. He didn't keep them, that's for sure.
To become the first president in over 150 years.
Actually, he kept them, but he definitely shared them. We already know he shared them with some people. Some of them have already testified to that fact.
To boycott an inauguration.
For weeks, Americans have wondered whether Donald Trump would leave the White House voluntarily.
A great honor.
Today, they watched it happen. An echo of another president who left in turmoil, Richard Nixon, after Watergate.
There's the president waving goodbye.
Donald Trump having none of it.
What we've done has been amazing by any standard.
But always close to controversy, his final months were consumed by turbulence.
The outbreak of a mystery virus in China.
We have it totally under control.
From the pandemic seriously outed.
No, you didn't. You had no idea what you were doing. You made a complete and utter mess of it.
Control to insisting fraud cost him November's election, the result of his 2-month campaign to change the outcome? 5 dead, and a Congress so shaken it impeached him for a record second time.
I will always fight for you. I will be watching, I will be listening, and I will tell you that the future of this country has never been better.
At Andrews Air Force Base, several hundred farewelled the President and First Lady.
Being your First Lady was my greatest honor.
Missing?
The Honourable Michael R. Pence.
Donald Trump's Vice President went to the inauguration.
Obviously.
Yeah, because he actually did the right thing for one time in his entire life.
Some appreciation that they are abiding by norms.
While President Trump broke 150 years of tradition, ditched the niceties of welcoming the Bidens to the White House, and flew out before his successor took the oath.
This great man that has done so much for our country, it means a lot.
The Trumps, well...
What did he do? He crashed the economy? He got a bunch of people killed? How's that did so much great for the country? And now he wants to put a 20% tax on us if he gets back in. No, the man's horrible.
Welcomed to their new home in Palm Beach, Florida.
I'm happy for him to finally retire, to have some peace, to be away from the swamp.
If only he would have retired and stayed out of public life and just gone the hell away. I mean, really. He's a horrible human being.
Unanswered as Donald Trump begins his time here as an ex-president, whether he'll try for the White House again in 2024, he teased the idea this morning.
So just a goodbye. We love you. We will be back in some form.
I'm heartbroken.
Donald Trump now faces tax investigations and a second Senate impeachment trial. Air Force One departed above his Mar-a-Lago resort, a reminder he no longer has the legal protection enjoyed by presidents.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect of the United States.
His hand on the family's 19th century Bible.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear
A 30-year senator and 2-term vice president.
that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States.
office of President of the United States.
Joe Biden reached his dream at 78 years of age.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
The 46th and oldest inaugurated president.
This is America's day. This is democracy's day. A day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve.
At the very building stormed in a day of deadly violence just 2 short weeks ago, President Biden inherited a deeply fractured America, vowing he's driven to part the dark clouds.
Politics doesn't have to be a raging fire, destroying everything in its path. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war. And we must reject the culture in which facts themselves are manipulated and even manufactured. Distrusting those who don't look like you, or worship the way you do, or don't get their news from the same sources you do. We must end this uncivil war.
He spoke before almost every other living president: Obama, the Clintons, George and Laura Bush.
Yeah, the only president that didn't show up was Trump, because he's too big of a chicken shit to stay there and face it.
But the most recent one had already long gone. Donald Trump left the White House almost 4 hours earlier. His divisive
Because he's a coward, and he always was.
Presidency over.
Have a good life. We will see you soon. Thank you.
A final Air Force One flight to Florida, a blaring soundtrack, the full stop on a single turn. Trump's once loyal deputy had chosen to be at the Capitol, Mike Pence, honouring his vow to oversee this peaceful transition.
My whole soul is in this, bringing America together, uniting our...
If Mike Pence was really loyal, he would have 25th Amendment Trump and got him out of office.
people uniting our nation. We can make America once again the leading force for good in the world.
Flags fluttered where a sea of people would have filled the National Mall. Just a small smattering of special guests, a podium wiped down.
And my first act as president, I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of silent prayer. Amen.
To more than 70 million Americans who didn't vote his way, many who still believe this election was stolen, he asked for a chance.
Hear me out as we move forward. And if you still disagree, so be it. That's democracy. That's America.
A nation that made more history in this moment.
I, Kamala Davy Harris, solemnly swear.
The daughter of an Indian scientist and a Jamaican academic.
So help me God.
Became America's first female vice president.
Vice President Kamala Harris. Don't tell me things can't change. Thank you, America.
Even without the usual audience, the Capitol rolled out a show. Lady Gaga, Jennifer Lopez.
This land was made for you and me.
And country music star Garth Brooks.
Amazing grace.
Clearly a presidential favourite, recalled for more hugs with the past ones he forgot. Bernie Sanders briefly stole the show, taking selfies in his less than formal attire, and a televised concert replaced the inaugural balls. Not quite the traditional dance for the first couple.
It's a new dawn, it's a new day.
It all went ahead without a hitch, no signs of trouble, chaos replaced by pageantry. And the solemn job ahead of this new Commander-in-Chief, starting by honouring America's war dead at Arlington National Cemetery. Then straight to the office. In the Beast with the newly minted number plates, he headed for the White House. A slow roll on a parade route minus the crowds. Safe enough for America's new first family to emerge and walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, stopping for fist bumps and thank yous for the few people there.
What does this moment feel as you're about to walk into the West Wing?
Returning years after he left as the second in charge. But unlike past handovers, the Clintons to the Bushes, Bushes to Obamas, and 4 years ago, the Obamas to the Trumps, there was no one to greet the Bidens. Leaving the new first family with the house to themselves. The job for Joe Biden now, turning campaign promises and rhetoric into reality. The president wasting no time rolling back Donald Trump's policies on his first day in office. 17 executive orders signed in the Oval Office. Mandatory masks in federal spaces, rejoining the Paris Climate Accord, ending the travel ban on mostly Muslim countries, and cutting off funding to Trump's proudest construction, the wall. There was one tradition Donald Trump kept. He left a note for Joe Biden in the Resolute desk.
The president wrote a very generous letter. It's because it was private. I will not talk about it until I talk to him.
First, he called in new appointees and made it clear.
If you're ever working with me and I hear you treat another colleague with disrespect, talk down to someone, I promise you I will fire you on the spot.
There's a new president and a new tone. America's Biden era begins.
Looking back at especially the last couple of years of the Trump presidency, I think it's fair to say the United States saw more division, but also less trust. They saw from the leadership in the White House someone who routinely went against what was happening in the Justice Department, went against the intelligence community, during COVID would be challenging what health authorities were saying. pillars of American society or Western democratic societies, these key government areas or areas of expertise, Donald Trump would take a swipe at and encourage his supporters to take a swipe at. His fake news criticism of the mainstream media, and when we were at Trump rallies, we'd be there shooting with the rest of the media, and there would be times when they'd all be turning to us and yelling fake news at us because that's what Donald Trump had told them to do, and they were getting on board with that. These institutions that are key to the United States and the way it works were all being challenged, and so they went through COVID with less trust of doctors and health authorities, which I think harmed the COVID response. Questions about how the justice system worked were called into question by the commander-in-chief. Questions about how the military was operating were also called into question in some ways. So I think America ended the Trump presidency with more division, but less trust in institutions that were at the core of how the country worked.
My entire time in the US was Trump's America, and to see it disintegrate to what it did is saddening. There are beautiful people in the US. It's something that...
Yeah, Trump, he caused some major division and some major damage to our country. And it will take a long time to heal that. A long time after he's dead. Unfortunately, I do believe he will have to die before that will be something that will be taken care of.
With our pop culture, we grow up.
By the way, that's not me calling for him to die. He will die eventually. We all do. He's not immortal, despite what his cult people think.
Looking up to the United States, especially as our closest ally, and to be standing in front of the White House, literally surrounded by civil unrest, was something that I certainly didn't expect my stint there to be wrapping up with. It's sad to look back on. I don't know whether it could happen again. I don't know how much COVID was a factor, how much the many different things that went wrong in 2020 contributed to that overall outcome, but it was terrifying to be there for it. I think it's made me even more determined to defend our role and how important it is. We can't be standing a few streets away trying to tell you what's happened, because we won't see it and it won't be entirely true. We won't know if there were warnings because we won't have heard them. We won't know if that person threw something at a police officer because we have to be there to see it. And to do that, we have to be safe. There has to be an understanding that when we're there, you can't touch us. It's our right to be there, but also it's the right of the people at home to know what is going on. And it's so important for democracy. And the undermining of democracy was something we really saw in 2020, and also, of course, then with January 6th. That was very, very concerning. As someone who's very passionate about what I do, I believe in what I do and how important we are to democracy.
A couple of things stand out in particular in terms of the trends over recent years. One is the polarisation we were talking about just seems to get deeper, and the polarisation produces results that really you wouldn't predict. I mean, as Donald Trump left office, he said, "We will be back in some form." Back then, that felt and looked pretty trite, and you'd say, well, he's got to say something like that, hasn't he? But yeah, fat chance. Here we are now, heading into the 2024 election, and he's the Republican nominee, at least he will be formally after the Republicans meet mid-year to give him that title. And opinion polls suggest, if anything, he's ahead of President Biden in the run for the next presidency. It's an extraordinary situation.
Yeah, he probably would have beat Biden, but he didn't see Kamala coming for some reason. And they totally just took them off guard on that completely.
It shows how firmly that base that we've talked about backs Donald Trump. He has done a remarkable job of bringing back Republicans who'd just done away with him, particularly after January 6th. They simply couldn't countenance what he'd done, and yet the force of his support, and that's what it is, it's Republicans knowing just how strongly those core conservatives in this country support Donald Trump. The force of that support has made Republicans who'd abandoned him.
But the problem is they can't win in a primary without Trump, but they can't win the general with him. There's where they run into a real problem, and it's been shown in several elections so far.
Basically eat their words and drop back into supporting him.
Okay, that is the end of the video. Let me know what you think. If you got an idea of something that you'd like to see me react to and talk about. And I will try to master these stickers a little bit. I particularly like this one. I do like that one. That's cute. But like, subscribe, let me know what you would like to see, and I'll try to come up with something and do it. I'm going to try to add some more videos in as I can. Tomorrow is not one of my full days of work, so hopefully I can get some stuff posted. I'll try to get some more of my Constitution videos. I got 2 up today. Be sure to check those out in my short. In the shorts, I got a playlist for those. I'm going to try to get, Article 3, I've only got the first 2 sections so far, so I'm working on it, trying to keep them in the shorts format so they're easy to digest. The Constitution is a little weird the way they wrote it, which is kind of a duh. Once I finish up the main Constitution, I'm going to work on the amendments, and I'm probably going to work on doing the questions for citizenship for an immigrant. I think that's a good one to work on, but we'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching, and let me play my way out here.